Joanne Gorka with Sotheby's International Realty. And with me today is Margaret Conboy from Whitman, Breed, and Abbott Law Firm. Thank you for joining me, Margaret.
Thank you, Joanne. Thank you for having me.
You're very welcome. And you've been with Whitman Breed for how long now?
I've been with Whitman Breed since 1994, since I graduated from law school.
Oh,
so
my
about
goodness.
24 years.
Wow.
So yeah, no, it's a great firm, and yeah, I enjoy it.
And you know Greenwich well.
And I grew up in Greenwich. Yep.
So that's why I'm here today. So I thought you might be able to help my clients a little bit understand the importance of creating their team and bringing an attorney in early in their real estate transaction process. So if we just start with buyers,
Sure.
if you could tell me, why do you think it's a good idea for buyers to engage their real estate attorney early in the process?
Well, I think it's important for a buyer, at the beginning, to know the whole process. A lot of times they don't understand, how it all works. You do your inspections, and you go to contract, and just the whole process, and also the costs. They like to know the closing costs, the title, commissions, how the title works, when you get title insurance, title search fee, just the various costs. And then also, before they start, when they're negotiating a contract, it's good to speak with an attorney before you get to that, because then you'll know all the contingencies. So you can have a mortgage contingency or a due diligence contingency, or if they're planning on doing work to the property, they may want a building contingency or wetlands contingency, depending on if they're developing the property. So a buyer should really connect with a lawyer when they start the process. And then once they get an accepted offer, they're not going all around searching for a lawyer. They're all set. They can submit the offer, and it goes smooth. It'll be smoother.
Yeah, those are not insignificant considerations. Those are very important considerations on the buy side. So then flipping it over to the selling side, why would a seller benefit from contacting you very early in that process, like as they're getting ready to list their home?
Sure.
with a
Yeah.
broker?
So usually when we get calls from sellers who are planning on listing, they want to know what the they want to know the cost associated. So on a sell side, you have to pay the conveyance taxes, which is a portion of the purchase price, and that's with all sales in Connecticut. The seller pays the conveyance tax, and that can be significant. It's 0.75% up until $800,000, and then anything over $800,000 is taxed at 1.25%. So it's significant. And then there's a local, which is usually $2.50 per thousand, and some areas charge $5 per thousand. So they want to know the cost. Sometimes they'll also ask about capital gains. We usually refer to an accountant, but we can give them some general ideas, the exclusions, and so it's good for. And then once we get past the closing costs, we tell them we could do a municipal search to make sure there are no open permits, no violations of record, do a title search just to make sure there are no title issues. And then some sellers also will do a building inspection just to see what might come up, and they may decide to do some of the work anticipating that it would be an issue, and then that issue would go away. So it's good to do some work like that for a seller too, and to get to know the attorney. And then when they get an offer, they can ask us what they think is reasonable as far as contingencies on the buyer's side. And
I had a situation where there was an easement through the property for the gas line, I believe it was. And so the question came up, like, how would we as a selling team address that? Could it be moved for a pool site? The attorney was really helpful.
Sure.
And how would we navigate that? Is it a possibility? Do we have to just have setbacks for it? And I think it was critical in that sale that we had done had those conversations with our legal team.
Exactly.
That was really helpful.
So the various ways to what you could do with the easement.
How would you advise a seller to handle a multiple bid situation?
Well, I always tell the seller, if they've gotten an offer and they've accepted it, and somebody else comes along before they're legally bound to go with the first buyer, and a second buyer comes along at a higher offer, I advise the seller to go back to the first person and give them an opportunity to match, because you've been dealing with this person, and I think just morally you should go back and see if they have the interest, and they probably at that point may have done inspections, so you want to give them an opportunity. And then if it really comes to the point, you could always do sealed bids if you think that you're not going to lose anyone, and they're both at the same level, and I would just then suggest sealed bids. But you have to be confident that it's not going to scare people away when you do this.
That's a very good point, because that happens. There's some people that will hear that and just say, well, I'm going to wait. I'm going to back away from this one. This isn't too intimidating a process for me.
Exactly.
And so that has to be carefully decided.
Right.
In a sealed bid situation, would you rather, as their attorney, open the bids with the client and advise them through that, or with the broker all together, or
I've
have the
done it
brokers?
Both ways, where the brokers either just the brokers usually collect the bid, and then the three, the broker and I and the seller will go through them and look at the bids and see which is the most favorable terms and all.
Well, that's certainly the best case scenario for a seller. But
Sure.
what about the property that's been on for a long time? They've negotiated hard, the buyers have negotiated hard, the sellers are feeling a little beat up, and then the inspection report reveals something, and you have to renegotiate. Have you seen that come up?
I've seen that happen. Yep.
And what would you suggest at that point, or is there any lesson you've learned that we could learn from?
Well, it's just, I had one recently, and the seller has to feel comfortable. If you try and tell the seller, especially now if it's the winter, you're not going to get a lot more offers, most likely, and if it's a good offer, but now they're asking for reductions, the seller has to weigh, do they want to keep the property on the market for whoever knows how long, or do they just accept and try and negotiate the buyer, for better resolution.
That's what I was going to say too. I think having the attorneys involved at that time, it's not a yes or no. There's a $5,000 issue. It could be each person is responsible for $2,500, and we can work it out, and it's instead of just getting annoyed or
and walking away,
emotional.
Right.
I think that's probably the key, is once you're at contract phase, to let the attorneys come in, let the language protect you, and not try to and not scare yourself right out of a deal.
Exactly. That's and you have to talk to the buyer and say you've got somebody right now who's willing to sign, but they want these concessions. We'll negotiate it, and the alternative is not selling and waiting for, you know.
And chances are that next buyer is going to do an inspection, and that same issue will be revealed.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
Definitely.
So, well, thank you very much for taking the time to talk today.
Thank you.
Very helpful.
Oh, I'm glad. This is very nice. Thank you.
Thank you.